Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've been enjoying the activities that have been prepared for you for World Doll Day, which continues at the Grovian Museum over a 3-day course. Now, you're looking at a table which has a variety of dolls, and the question is asked, what do these dolls all have in common? What is the theme of World Doll Days? Dolls from around the world. And we thought that it would be of interest for you to see the variety of dolls that have been produced from across this wonderful planet that we all share. So I'm going to start in our backyard here in the United States and in our far Midwest, where the cowboys and cowgirls roam. The first one is the American cowgirl par excellence, Shirley Temple, who is dressed here to represent the centennial of the state of Texas, the great state of Texas, in 1936. This was an ideal doll, and she stands behind the leader of Western fashion, a poupée statuette, which is from the Center of French Haute Couture, and the doll was specifically designed to show French fashion styles as a countertop model. This is a wonderful outfit. It could have been a bridal dress in the 1870s. And the bridal dresses in the 1870s and 80s and 90s in particular were also the going away dresses. And so this doll has not only the white dress for the wedding, but she also has the hat which she would have used as she left the ceremonies. Now, brides do not necessarily wear white all around the world. We come to a wonderful Chinese bride from the Door of Hope mission, made in the early part of the 20th century. The Door of Hope dolls, as many of you know, have wonderful carved wooden faces and heads. And the bride in China is always dressed in red. She's not the only bride that's dressed in red. Brides in India are also dressed in red. Actually, in the European countries and in the United States, white as bridal gowns came in the early 19th century. We remain in the Far East with Japan, with the court musician at the top of our pyramid here. She is made of typical Japanese material, gofun, which is a crushed shell, which is like a composition in that it's bound with an adhesive, but it's a material that's unique to Japanese dolls. And the doll has a kimono on, again, which is typical of what the Japanese are wearing, both daily and for ceremonial occasions. Now, on the next shelf down, we have a little black doll who could be from any place on this planet where dark-skinned peoples live. Her dress is so ununique that you can't point to the exact spot she comes from. But her neighbor is very interesting because this is not only the costume of the city of Moscow, but also is the outfit that nannies wore in Moscow. It was their uniform. And if you look carefully here, there's the little baby. Now, we have Another Asian here. This is a Simon and Halbig. And this one you cannot place, as we couldn't place the little black doll, to any specific area. She's an Asian representation, but she doesn't identify with any specific culture. And I think she's just wonderful. If she's going to represent any culture, she's going to represent Thailand. So the little chap down here on the bottom shelf is a Spanish or Portuguese matador with his typical outfit, his suit of lights with the gold trim on it and his very unique styled hat. Our next doll is a Coolants from Martinique, representing Martinique. Now, some of these dolls were dressed locally and some were dressed by German people doing home craft dressing. Then we have a Muslim doll who I think probably represents a citizen of India. I'm not sure, but I think it's India from, or Afghanistan or someplace like that, where this sort of tribal attire is, and with the Muslim face covering. And finally on this shelf, we have a very interesting cloth doll with embroidered features for the face and a hand that includes 5 rolled fingers. And usually we associate those rolled fingers with dolls coming from the island of Madeira, just off the Spanish or North African coast it is actually, I believe. But this is a Russian doll. They can be traced back to the 1890s. Whether they were produced even before the 1890s is open to question. But the material of the underdress, the blue, is definitely of an 18th century origin. And she also includes under her skirt, if I can do this, a wonderful Russian, very typical block printed fabric, heavy linen. Does that work, Michael?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But what she really is staggering, or a feature that's staggering on her, is that she has freshwater pearls that have been strung and applied, and she has jewels, one of which is a semi-precious stone, and that is the turquoise up here. The rest is paste or glass. And her kokoshnik, which is her headdress, has an embroidered back to it.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And this was the sort of costume that Russian peasants did not wear. These were the clothing of courtiers and what were they called? The boyards? I forget now what. Oh dear.
These were for the wealthy people.
These were for the wealthy people. But this is absolutely...
They'd wear these to like fancy dress balls.
Yes, but they also came out of the court. So
It really is amazing. The face is very expressive.
And there are very few of those that I've been able to trace.
And the little tiny pearls are just astounding.
Those pearls are about the size of just a little bit larger than a poppy seed.
Yeah, just amazing.
The final 4 dolls that I have selected for today's overview of dolls from around the world includes this wonderful Grodnatal doll, obviously a carved and turned wooden. And these dolls are among the first dolls that were dressed in regional attire for commercial usage. And they made their way from the alpine areas on the Italian-German border all the way to Istanbul. She is dressed in an antari, which is a typical Turkish attire. The women wore turbans like this, and she comes out of the West's interest in fashion that was established by the English ladies going to live in Constantinople in the late 18th century. So she is of a type that's really introduces the, quote, travel doll experience to the world. Even though it's a German doll, she's been dressed in Turkey. So we have the meeting of East and West in this doll. Now, let's go to the little one here in front, who is a Lynchie doll, who has been dressed in a costume from Italy, which is easily identifiable by the headdress that she wears. But she's as cute as she can be. And she would have been done for a souvenir trade, not as a play doll. She would have been brought back for that purpose to whatever country the tourist was from.
I imagine, don't you think a lot of these were sold on luxury cruise ships as
Yes,
in
the
gift shops?
yeah. Now, I've saved the last two, excuse me, I'm going to move her aside, if I might, and I'm going to bring her to the forefront. This doll is from the island of Marken in the Netherlands. It's no longer an island, but it was at the time this doll was made. And we know exactly the day that this doll was purchased. We have a typescript of her label, which is at home. And she was bought on the 7th of November, 1881, which is, I think, pretty neat to know
Sure.
when this doll walked off the shelf and started its adventure to somewhere else. And it's also wonderful because you look at the doll and you think, oh, 1881 is a bit late for this type of doll, but a number of the tourist dolls were not always the most current dolls available in the marketplace. They frequently were ones that were no longer popular in the regular toy distribution circuit, sort of old stock, if you will.
I mean, in a way, around the world dolls are some of the first collector type dolls.
Oh, yes.
Where you're collecting them for...
Yeah. For more for adults than children necessarily. The final doll in our selection today is from Hinderlopen in the Netherlands, which is in the northern part of the country, and it's a seaside port, and it was a place where the ships came in from the West Indian, Indian trade in the 17th, 18th, 19th century. And they were bringing goods from the part of India that did chintz. And this doll wears a garment that is made of chintz. And this was considered the identifying garment of the Hinderlopen women. This woman is a married lady. You can tell that by the wear that she has on. I think we're going to have a very, very brief video for you to see how her clothes went on. And you'll notice in the video that the underskirts do not close at the side, they do not close at the back. Rather, they close at the front. And for those of you who think of outside pockets as being 18th century, whoops, no, they go into the 19th century. Now, those of you who know something about French poupées are saying, but isn't that a French doll? Yes, it is. And she's on a lovely leather body, just as you would expect. But here she is dressed completely as a Dutch woman. And again, this is probably old stock that's made its way to the Netherlands for dressing in this very, very unique and characteristic attire. And so that's our trip around the world for World Doll Day and the associated programs that the Grovian Museum has put together and that Sharon Barton Margio has kindly and very generously supported with a generous contribution to two very special people, Michael Canadas and David Robinson, so that they could share all the wonders of their knowledge and their collection with you.